Hello everyone. This is the 15th part of the story, Abe the Wizard. Chapter 62, Hitting the Base. Abel was a man of his word. He began to apply his power of the will to the base of 100 skills. Since there wasn't a normal method to initiate 100 skills, under Abel's power of will, he felt that he was able to continue to forge. Abel then lifted the 100 pounds hammer higher and forged layer on top of layer as he threw the base into the furnace again and again. 101 skills, 102 skills, 103 skills. 120 skills. When Abel had reached 120 skills, he realized this base was no longer viable and he could no longer strike it with his old method. The structure was much more compact than those normal base of 100 skills. As the stiffness was much higher than he had expected, Abel decided to name this base as the base of 120 skills. From the process of base to shield forming, all Abel had to do was tap slowly. When a typical knight shield was forged by Abel, he always did a cut on the handle which allowed him to place a gem inside. For the selection of the runes, Abel decided to proceed with the intermediate attribute rune ink. This particular rune ink was very easy to draw. Abel had a lot of experiences in transforming them. This time, Abel decided to not modify the rune body but instead decided to add an energy rune circuit that was connected to the handle. This type of rune drawing can only be successful once. However, there were 4 examples that he could use it for reference. Abel placed the diamond into the handle as a source of energy. The diamond served as a spiritual power to incite the rune. When the rune was successful, there was a burst of white light, and although the shield had not been tested, the production process at this time was very successful. As Abel placed the shield onto the ground, he then struck the shield using his hammer with 1/10 of his power and struck it with the power of around 200 pounds. When the hammer hit the shield, there was a flash of white light on the surface and it was immediately gone. Abel proceeded to use 60% of his power. This time it was roughly the strength of an intermediate knight's combat chi power. But the same as last time, the surface was flashed with white light and immediately disappeared. When Abel realized he had made such a powerful shield, he was beyond excited within his heart. He couldn't help himself but used his full might to strike the shield. As more than 2,000 pounds struck the shield, there was only a loud noise and the shield was struck so hard it went into the boulder-paved ground. Turns out, this attack was not completely mitigated. Abel wasn't quite sure what level of knights were capable of dishing out 2,000 pounds of power, but he was certain that this shield was more than enough for the knights to use in a battle. Also, Abel discovered this shield made out of the base of 120 skills resistance was beyond his expectations. It was even capable of withstanding these powerful strikes. Even though most of the physical damage was gone from the place where the hammer struck. The sword did not even show any traces of battle scars, showing just how tough this shield was. A magic weapon was powerful due to its magic effects. This magic effect could resist physical damage. They were a match in heaven for the shield. As long as the diamond was not fully used, the magic effect would always be there. Although the shield was not able to resist magic attacks, Abel had never actually seen any actual magic attacks being made by someone, other than the ones he had forged. The shield that was built to absorb the physical impact was complete. However, it was ugly. Its surface was empty with no leather lining. Abel had doubt in his mind. Although he had forged a base of 120 skills today, it was a little bit different from the method Master Bentham had told him. According to the master, the highest skills that the base of iron could reach was 100. Therefore, Abel decided that he would take it to Bentham to take a look. On top of that, he also needed to ask the master to identify the material used on that black armor he acquired from Fowler earlier. Abel went back into his room, took that black armor and rode off towards the blacksmith guild. "Is this your new work?" Master Bentham looked at Abel's shield on his hands and took it curiously. "What's this material?" The first thing Bentham realized was the difference in the material. He then looked up at Abel and asked, "Is this made with ordinary iron ore?" Yes, I use the best iron ore in the mine, Abel replied. Impossible, although this material is inferior to an iron meteorite, it exceeded the common 100 skills. What method did you use to forge this shield? While Master Bentham knew that it was not polite to ask someone so directly about the forging method, even if it was his nominal disciple. But, he still blurted out the question out of sheer curiosity and love for his profession as a blacksmith. This was the materials obtained from a 120 skills base. Said Abel, he told Bentham everything he knew except for that little secret about himself. 120 skills. How can it be 120 skills? Master Bentham immediately felt deeply in himself that everything he had learned had been shattered. But he did not doubt what Abel said. Firstly, Abel did not need to lie to him, and the materials of the shield did seem different. All right, let me forge one in front of you. Abel quickly saw the change in Bentham's expression as Abel requested to forge in front of Bentham. Come to my workshop. Master Bentham then grabbed Abel and dragged him into his workshop. Afterward, Master Bentham picked through a pile of iron ore for a while and took the best piece of iron out. He then placed it on the operating table and said to Abel, "This is the best iron ore I have. Check if it's good enough. If it's not, I will go back to the mine to get better ones." "Nah, it's fine, this will do." Abel then stretched his hands through an iron ore furnace. When he took the large 100-pound hammer from the side, Bentham's eyes were buckled. Using a 100-pound hammer to extract essence, this was something that he had never heard anyone has done. The 100-pound hammers were only used for flattening tools but not for extracting the essence. Normally it would take more than a few thousand strikes until it became a 100 skills. How could anyone persist for so long with such a heavy hammer? But when Master Bentham saw Abel pulling the iron ore out of the stove for forging, he realized that Abel was using the 100-pound hammer with more ease than himself using his 30-pound hammer. And by listening to the hammering sound between the hammer and the base iron, he could tell that Abel was using a tremendous amount of force. Master Bentham always knew that Abel had enormous strength, but from his memory, it was never this powerful. Abel's strength must have increased tremendously these past few days. From 1 skill to 80 skills, Bentham nodded as he looked at Abel's forging method as he was using his method that he taught. When he saw Abel striking the base until 81 skills, he knew that Abel's abilities had already exceeded his. Abel no longer needed to use his power of the will, which was not how his old method had suggested. Abel only increased his strength and continued to strike. By this point, Master Bentham felt like he was no longer watching a man forging the base of the iron. Instead, he was watching a stone monster hammering the ground, and with each strike, the master felt the ground trembling below him. Normally, the base should not longer be refined with so much force at this point, yet, it continued being struck violently, over and over again. When it had reached 100 skills, Abel began to use his power of the will. This was because he was not experienced enough. If he had enough experience, he would have been able to continue without his power of the will. With Abel's last hammer strike, the base iron on the table had been refined 120 times. When Bentham saw the outcome, he looked at it silently, completely speechless. "How strong are you?" Master Bentham finally remembered this important question. The reason he had asked Abel this question was because if this technique is to be used by others, they had to first acquire a tremendous amount of power. But what kind of power can be achieved to make such a base, with 120 skills? "About 2,000 pounds, Abel whispered. When Master Bentham heard what Abel said, he was shocked and frightened. 2,000 pounds? Master Bentham said to himself, "Monster. How much power is there if you don't use your combat chi?" It suddenly occurred to Master Bentham that Abel was a knight and that his strength was increased by fighting. 2,000 pounds was when I don't have to use my combat chi, Abel explained, but he didn't dare say the figure that was included with the combat chi as he was really afraid to frighten Master Bentham. Master Bentham sighed and shook his head in frustration. Not to mention blacksmiths, there were not even many knights who could obtain such power. It seemed like Abel was the only one in this world who could forge a base of 120 skills. Chapter 63, Banquet. Master Bentham turned the shield around. To his surprise, there was a gem installed. He could not help but ask, "Is this a magic defense guard?" "Yes, it's my new invention. It can absorb the impact of attacks," Abel explained. "Your abilities are miles ahead of me at this point," Master Bentham exclaimed. The master did not know how the impact could this shield absorb. If he knew, he couldn't be so relaxed like this. "I found some armor. Can you help me take a look at it?" "I am not sure what material is it made out of," said Abel as he placed the black armor onto the hands of Master Bentham. It was only at this moment Master Bentham realized Abel was carrying another thing with him. When the master received the armor, he almost dropped it. The weight of the thing was drastically lighter than its appearance. "Holy Wolf's treasure, how did you get this?" Master Bentham asked shockingly. "It's my spoil of war. A few days ago I killed a wargen and took it from him." "Is this thing called a Holy Wolf's treasure?" Abel was unsure why Master Bentham was so shocked, so he honestly replied. "This is a holy object of the wargen. If they knew that you had this armor, they would do anything to get it back." Master Bentham then proceeded to say, "Remember how I told you about the legendary equipment? This armor is legendary." Master Bentham continued to explain, according to the wargen totem, a holy wolf had slaughtered the young of a black dragon. Although the dragons tried to hunt the holy wolf down, the holy wolf escaped eventually, while being badly injured. He brought the core of the young dragon back to the wargens, and their blacksmith had turned it into armor. "So, the wargen you had killed must be a high-status royal wargen." Abel was reminded of the wargen long spear technique. He was certain what Master Bentham had said was correct. "The best thing you can do right now is to lock this armor up somewhere safe. Never let anyone know you have it," Master Bentham suggested. When Abel realized the danger of this armor, he decided to follow what Master Bentham had suggested. The Wargens were one of the greatest nations of the Orc Empire. The idea of getting hunted down by them was not a pleasant one. Just thinking about it sent a shiver down Abel's spine. At first, Abel was thinking of wearing this armor if he decided to transform into a wargen, so he could gain some protection. Luckily he had asked Master Bentham before doing so. If he was going to wear this armor around the Orc Empire, it would be suicide. As he carried the Holy Wolf's treasure back to the castle, Abel didn't just hold it in his hand as he did before. He put it in a box and directly locked it up in his personal operation room as soon as he got back. He was the only person who had the key to this operation room, so it should be safe. As time passed, the atmosphere of Harry Castle was filled with more and more excitement. Since the Lord of Marshall's birthday was coming up and both he and his adopted son had just been promoted to Lord, the Lord of Marshall decided to throw a huge banquet to celebrate all three of these good fortunes. He invited all the nobles of Harvest City, neighboring lords, and of course, the Knight of Bennett and his family. Other than going to the forest to comfort his lonely white cloud in his free time, Abel spent all his days in the blacksmith guide trying to forge weapons. He had prepared a lot of things to be auctioned at Edmund's boutique shop. Of course, they were not all magic weapons. If there were too many magic weapons in the market, it would definitely impact its value. Edmund's boutique shop was a boutique shop within the Duchy of Carmel. Since the duchy's spending was limited, Abel had prepared 10 120 skills big sword, and 2 magic swords. These weapons were a lot better than any other ones on the market, so they should sell very well. On the 10th of June, the Harry Castle had transformed into a fiery red castle from a distance. All the walls were decorated with a huge red coat of arm rugs which would only be brought out when there were some important events. All the roads connecting towards the castle had been cleaned, the servants had put on their new fitted suits, and even the guards were wearing their best armor. Just that Harry Castle was ready to welcome its guests. Although it was supposed to be a dinner banquet, the guests had already been arriving since noon. You could see countless busy servants roaming around the castle since every guest was someone with high status. Since the Lord of Marshall's status had increased, his social group's status had also increased. Although it was only a lord position, this position was very hard to achieve in Duchy of Carmel. Therefore, all the lords were very well respected. Especially, since the Lord of Marshall was a lord with a fiefdom, he became one of the top members of the Harvest City's royal circle. Abel had already put on his luxurious suit before the banquet even started. Since he had never been to a king's wedding, he did not have a coat of arms in his chest pocket. Other than that, his suit was designed according to the status of a lord. This was because before this banquet, the Lord of Marshall had specifically invited the best tailor in Harvest City, Lady Candace, to make this suit for Abel. Abel was irritated by how complicated it was to put on this suit. In hot weather like this, clothes with so many layers like this suit had made him feel like he was being locked up in a box. However, according to the words of the Lord of Marshall, being a noble was not about how much money you had, but how much money you looked like you had. To Abel, this meant that, you want to show off, you suffer. But of course, he would not say it out loud. You could see how much the Lord of Marshall cared about this banquet from all angles. The wine was all imported, which he had to order from the Harvest Cities many days prior. It was the Duchy of Thunder's 10-year edition wine. The silverware on the tables were all brand new, and even the chefs were specifically invited to Harvest City to cater to this banquet. Generally speaking, the Harry Castle did not have the rich historical significance of those 100 to 1,000-year-old castles. Although the Lord of Marshall was born in a large family, since he had gained his fiefdom and castle, by law he was no longer related to the Harry family in Beikong City. Also due to the long distance between their two cities, their relationship was not that close. Under these circumstances, the Knight of Marshall was very strict on the standard of this banquet. He was a man with dignity, and everything has to be perfect. "Uncle Marshall, do you want me to send some servants here from Abel Castle?" asked Abel in a hurry. He realized that every guest in this banquet was someone with high status, so they demanded their own personal servants, which caused a shortage of servants in Harry Castle. "That would be great, Abel," the Lord of Marshall replied promptly. He also realized the current situation. The servants who served in the castles were not just ordinary servants. Since they represent the face of their owner, they would need to go through specific training that was unique to the castle they serve. Abel had recruited the 2-horse carriage in the castle and headed towards Abel's castle. He needed to make sure there would be enough servants before the evening arrived. As the night came, Harry Castle was brightly lit. The Lord of Marshall stood in the middle of the castle hall, welcoming his guests. Abel stood beside with a smile, respectfully listening to the Lord of Marshall introduce his friends. "Welcome Master Bentham, welcome the Knight of Bennett," said Butler Lindsay. These words traveled through the entrance into the ears of Abel. Immediately, Abel rushed towards the entrance. He had to personally welcome his father, the Knight of Bennett. Abel also had a deep respect for Master Bentham. Although the master worked under the Harry Castle's blacksmith guild, he was Abel's teacher and a very famous person in Harvest City. "Father, Master, welcome to the banquet tonight." Abel had it all planned out. He ordered the luxurious horse carriage, which was supposed to be the Lord of Marshall's birthday present, to first pick up the Knight of Bennett's family, then Master Bentham. The Knight of Bennett got off the carriage first. When he saw Abel, his serious face leaked out a small slight gratified smile as he nodded to Abel. Then came his, Nora. They had not seen each other for a very long time. When she finally saw Abel, her eyes began to sparkle. However, due to the seriousness of this event, she tried her best to hold her tears back. Next, was his big brother Zach. When Zach saw Abel, he immediately jumped off the carriage and hugged him tightly. The Knight of Bennett gave a small cough, reminding Zach this was a serious event, and that he should behave himself. Abel couldn't help but giggle. His big brother was still afraid of his father. He then proceeded to say with a smile, "My dear brother, when you become an official knight, I will make you a full-body armor as a present." Zach's eyes began to sparkle. He let out a big laugh and said, "That day won't be too long, you better start preparing now." Master Bentham was the last person to get off the carriage. He smiled as he said to Abel, "This carriage was pretty nice. An old body like me didn't even feel a bump when sitting on it. But won't the Lord of Marshall be angry that you had picked me up with his birthday present?" "If the Lord of Marshall found out that I have a carriage and don't pick you up with it, he would be furious," Abel replied, as he reached out his hand to help Master Bentham off the carriage. Chapter 64, Prince Wyatt. Abel did not explain each of the features of this luxurious bull carriage in detail to Master Bentham. He did not want to spoil the surprise for the Lord of Marshall. Master Bentham also didn't know the value of this thing. Master Bentham only knew that Abel had added a shock absorber to the carriage, which he knew Abel could do so. After Abel had accompanied his father's family and Master Bentham into the hall, he decided to go back to the Lord of Marshall. Suddenly, he heard the voice of Butler Lindsay from the entrance again. The mighty Master Thorin Oakenshield had arrived. Although the Lord of Marshall had never met this master, he knew that Master Thorin was the judge of Abel's blacksmith master's examination. Therefore he had sent him an invitation as well as a gesture of good manners. At first, the Lord of Marshall was not expecting Master Thorin to show up in these banquets since he was a dwarf. Yet, he was here. This was probably because he wanted to show respect to Abel. "Welcome, Master Thorin," said Abel sincerely as he bowed to Master Thorin. "Hello, Master Abel. Although the human's lord status doesn't mean much to you, I and the Blacksmith Union still want to wish you well," said Master Thorin. His intention of coming to this banquet had become clear. He wanted to show everyone that the Blacksmith Union was on Abel's side. "Master Thorin, would you be able to stay at the castle for a while after the banquet? There are some things I want to ask you." Although Master Bentham had studied forgery under the dwarfs, he was never a blacksmith for the dwarfs. Abel had always wondered about this, so he wanted to ask Master Thorin. At first, Abel thought about visiting Master Thorin after everything was settled, but since Master Thorin was here, why not ask him today? "Of course, Master Abel, you must have some interesting ideas to discuss. I will stay." Master Thorin thought. Master Abel only asked him to stay because he had come up with some new inventions. Master Thorin was very happy to share his forging experience. Lord of Harvest, the Honorable Viscount Dickens had arrived. Fourth Prince of Duchy of Carmel, the Honorable Majesty Prince Wyatt George had arrived. Every guest was shocked by these words. Even the Lord of the City and one of the four princes of Duchy of Carmel were attending this banquet. The ruler of the city would rarely attend other people's banquet, let alone going to another person's castle to attend a banquet. Not only that, but someone with such an honorable status such as the fourth Prince of Duchy of Carmel had also decided to attend the banquet of an ordinary lord. How was that possible? As the host of the banquet, the Lord of Marshall and Abel quickly rushed towards the entrance. There were 2 horse carriages in front of the castle gate, which was followed by 8 knights. The owner of the carriage had already gotten off the carriage and heading straight towards the castle. The Honorable City Ruler, the Honorable Majesty Prince Wyatt's. "Welcome to Harry Castle," said the Lord of Marshall as he bowed to the 2. "I heard it's your birthday, so I brought something for you as a gift," said Viscount Dickens with a warm expression as he took out a small box. The Lord of Marshall received the box. He said as he opened it, "I know you are very busy, so I didn't invite you. It was my mistake." Inside the box was a Medal of Honor. On its surface was etched with the drawing of the Goddess of Harvest City. It was personally made by the priest of the Goddess of Harvest City Shrine. It had been blessed to bring good fortune. The Medal of Honor was very complicated to make. Only one could be produced each year. Yet, countless lords in the city wanted one. It was said that the Goddess of Harvest City would help protect the fiefdom of the owners of this medal. Although it was not hard for Viscount Dickens to obtain this medal. For him to give it away as a gift, it showed that he respected the Lord of Marshall a lot. "Thank you so much, this present was a treasure," said the Lord of Marshall with a face full of happiness, as he put the medal back into the box. As Prince Wyatt saw that Viscount Dickens handing out a present to the Lord of Marshall, he expressed a bit of dissatisfaction. Although he had come to this banquet with Viscount Dickens, he was still a royal, and the royals in Duchy of Carmel always had tensions with the nobles. Although Prince Wyatt had a high status, his father King Astor George was not in good condition. If the king passed away, as the fourth prince, he would be kicked out of the royal family and became a noble. Since he did not have a fiefdom, he could no longer use the last name George. Moreover, if his offspring could not obtain enough outstanding military service, they would have become ordinary citizens. Therefore, other than the oldest prince, every other prince was trying their best to obtain an outstanding military service during their time as a prince. This was because no matter where they go, an elite guard would be by their side, which made getting an outstanding military service much easier. A few days ago, when Abel was auctioning his magic weapons at Edmund's boutique shop in Beikong City, Prince Wyatt was also traveling around the southern area. When the prince heard the news, he immediately came to join the auction. There were not many magic weapons in the human world. Therefore, Prince Wyatt wanted to buy some, no matter for personal use or bribing people, it would help him tremendously. There was only one reason why Prince Wyatt had traveled to Harvest City: he wanted to see Master Abel, and directly buy some weapons off him. Luckily he ran into Viscount Dickens on the way, so he decided to attend this banquet with him together. Since Prince Wyatt came in a rush, he did not prepare any gifts. Everything that he brought along with him was either too expensive or too cheap. There was nothing suitable as a gift. On top of that, this act by Viscount Dickens was trying to impact the prestige of the royals. Prince Wyatt was also not fond of the last name of Harry. In Duchy of Carmel, everyone knew that since the Harry family was one of the largest families in Beikong City, they opposed the royals. Prince Wyatt had just discovered that Master Abel was living in a Harry castle in Harvest City, and this Harry castle was exactly the offspring of the Harry in Beikong City. "The night of Marshall, I came in a rush, so I didn't prepare any gifts. I hope you can forgive me," said Prince Wyatt with a smile, followed by a bow. Abel watched from the side. He noticed the arrogance within the smile of Prince Wyatt. Moreover, he called the Lord of Marshall as the Knight of Marshall. Although his position had not been officially declared by the royals, according to the noble tradition, the name should still be changed with the title of a lord. "Your Majesty, your presence is the biggest gift to Harry Castle." The Lord of Marshall also disliked Prince Wyatt. But, he still spoke with a face full of smiles. The two prestige guests had arrived at the hall. Suddenly the atmosphere began to light up. The highest status nobles began to approach and chat with Viscount Dickens and Prince Wyatt. While the nobles who were not prestige enough to chat with the two royals, they were also very excited for the fact that it had a banquet alongside the ruler of the city and Prince Wyatt. This was something to brag about. "Master Abel, I came here today was all because I want to buy a magic weapon," said Prince Wyatt, as he approached Abel holding his wine glass. At the time Abel was talking to Master Thorin about forging experiences, and the prince had interrupted their conversation. "All my magic weapons were sold through Edmund's boutique shop. If you want to buy one, feel free to join one of our auctions," said Abel with a slight sense of irritation, as he thought about ignoring Prince Wyatt. He wasn't trying to gain anything out of the prince, and since the prince had disrespected the Lord of Marshall earlier, Abel was utterly in a bad mood. The dwarf's Master Thorin curled his eyebrows. The request of the prince was unreasonable. Although blacksmiths would sell their weapons privately, they were often only reserved for their close friends. Blacksmiths needed to make a living too. The cost of producing these weapons often had an astronomical number, and buying them through an auction was the best way to support and motivate a blacksmith to raise their quality standard. "I will give you 10,000 gold coins for one of your magic weapons." Prince Wyatt didn't seem to catch the rejection Abel had made, since he proceeded to speak with a sense of arrogance. Abel could not understand this prince, how could he show such bad manners in a banquet? Even Master Thorin, who did not say a thing, was shocked by the prince asking Abel to buy his weapons directly. This marks the end of part 15 of the story, Abe the Wizard. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.